you're fine.
Thank you for the invitation. It was an honor to be part of this project with the posters. They are very inspirational. I'm going to start with the last poem from my book, The House of Mirrim, La Casa de Mirrim. It's a narrative poem, and I will read it both in English and in Spanish. And this is from started when I was in Thailand. I was in Thailand for almost a month, and I visited a hospital in a small town, Mirrim, and this is the poem that came out of that visit. I walk through the hospital hallways. I shouldn't look inside the bedrooms, but I see an old man crying next to his wife. I don't know if she is his wife, that's what I suppose. The door is wide open. The woman still breathes, sunken in a small bed with 2 pillows under her head. I get closer. She is asleep, more than asleep. He removes her eyeglasses, the small gold earrings shaped as clovers, and the denture that comes out with the noise of a suction cup and has silver hooks at the edge. He tries to remove her wedding band, but her hands are swollen, and he has to bend over and lick her finger several times like an obsessive, clumsy dog. He takes the ring out of his mouth and keeps it on the palm of his hand with the other things, relics, bones of metallic birds stained by life. She tilts her head to the right. Her neck is made of clouds. Her face is the face of all the dying. He doesn't kiss her. He doesn't even touch her forehead when the nurses carry her away into the cold, where she will spread brand new tablecloths and will set the table with tall glasses and garlands until we arrive. Camino por los pasillos del hospital. No debería mirar dentro de las habitaciones, pero veo a un anciano que llora junto a su mujer. No sé si es su mujer, lo supongo. La puerta está abierta de par en par. La mujer todavía respira, hundida en la cama con 2 almohadas bajo la cabeza. Me acerco, está dormida, está más que dormida. Él le quita las gafas, los pendientes de oro con forma de trébol, la dentadura postiza que se despega con ruido de ventosa y tiene garfios de plata en los extremos. También intenta quitarle el anillo de bodas, pero ella tiene las manos hinchadas. Él entonces se inclina y le chupa el dedo varias veces como perro torpe y obsesivo. El hombre se saca el anillo de la boca y lo guarda en la palma de la mano con las demás cosas, reliquias, huesos de pájaros metálicos manchados por la vida. Ella gira la cabeza a la derecha, tiene el cuello hecho de nubes, su cara es la cara de todos los muertos. El hombre no la besa, ni siquiera le toca la frente cuando los camilleros se la llevan hacia el frío, donde ella extenderá manteles nuevos y pondrá la mesa con copas altas y guirnaldas hasta que lleguemos. And, I'm going to read poems from a new collection I'm writing. This is, I think, the second time I'm reading these poems in public, so let's see how they go. This is called Taxi Driver. He tells me that his wife is pregnant. He just learned about it. He is the taxi driver. I am the passenger. This happens at 5 a.m. in the morning in a taxi on my way to the Madrid airport. The taxi driver is young, handsome, probably as handsome as he will ever be. He's going home after this ride, he says. He cannot wait. Everything has a higher purpose now, I suppose. The way he stops at traffic lights, the way he rolls up the window. He drives through the city, Cibeles, Recoletos, Castellana, and the city turns and collects cells, tissue, cartilage, bones, lungs for this child. Madrid is the big spinning wheel of embryos and invagination. It happened so fast, he says. We did not know it was going to be so fast. I want to ask him if he knew when it happened, exactly when the conception happened, if he felt anything different, a stronger pulse, almost painful, in that region between anus and scrotum, in that equinox of flesh. I don't ask him anything. I don't think those are appropriate questions, so I say the things you say in these cases. Congratulations, all the best to you and your wife. I watch him driving his smooth drive, the one I will never drive. When we arrive to the airport, he helps me with my luggage, and I thank him. I pay, give me a tip. Suddenly, he hugs me. Have a good trip, he says. I can't tell if he knows what I'm thinking, what I want from him. This is called Thank You Note. It is 1992. My father is having surgery at the University Hospital in Zaragoza, where he will die weeks later from complications of prostate cancer. He is 75. Many nights I stay with him in the hospital. My shift is from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. until my sister comes to replace me. One Friday, my sister comes earlier, around 6:30 in the morning. I cannot sleep, she says. We are a family of bad sleepers. Before going to my apartment, I stop in a cafe. They are just opening. I sit at the counter. There is a young man next to me. He's going home after a night out with his friends. That's what he tells me, and I believe him. He looks calm, shy, sober, almost embarrassed. I don't tell him about my father. I don't want pity, just some company, some beauty to bring to my eyes. We don't need much negotiation. I finish my croissant. He finishes his coffee. We go to his apartment. It's around the block. I just moved in, he says. There are unopened boxes and piles of clothing on the floor, but the place feels organized, welcoming. It's a one-bedroom apartment, but still, he shows me around. He gives me water. Inside the fridge, I see glass containers with food. My mother has given me this, he says. Are you hungry? He takes a shower, leaves the door open and talks to me. Do you want to take a shower? Sit wherever you can. It will take me a minute. He comes to bed with his short hair still wet. He is thin, has long legs, narrow hips. He has a tan line. I touch it with the tip of my fingers. Childhood is not too far away. The days at the pool, the thirst, the first time naked in front of other boys. He holds my head with both hands as if he wants to drink from it, as if he could swallow my thoughts. I don't sleep much. When I wake up, I take a shower. He gives me an orange towel. The towel is inside a transparent plastic bag. The day is almost over. I have to go home and change and go back to the hospital. He writes his number on a piece of paper, but I never call. I don't remember his name. And I'm going to end with the poem with the poster. The title is Primo. Primo. He unfolds a cylinder of black velvet. He says the names and the stones appear. Amethyst, tourmaline, peridot, citrine, obsidian. With long tweezers, he takes the stones and places them one at a time on top of my left ring finger, not literally on my finger, suspended just above the skin. "How do you like this one?" he asks. He opens inkwells and tin boxes with watercolors. He starts drawing. He doesn't talk. Bent over the paper, he becomes small, absent. Outside, the streets pause for a moment, take a breath. He paints with tiny brushes and sometimes with the tip of his fingers. His fingers, soft and precise, know my name, the arch of my rib cage, the platform of shoulder blades. He blows on the paper. He stretches his neck backwards. I can smell him, his hair, his hands, the collar of his shirt, the smell of him when we live together, the smell of breakfast on the kitchen table, sitting next to each other before the shower. He gives me the drawing. "This is the way it's going to be," he says. The piece feels heavy on the paper, is still wet, has volume. Now he talks and builds a house around me, a house made of facets, carrots, transparency, luster. I feel protected and naked at the same time. It's not easy to tolerate this proximity, this attention. He looks old for the first time. He has been always the youngest of all, the most precocious. "Primo," I say, "you must be tired." He does not answer. He must be tired of carrying these stones every day, from place to place, Brazil, Colombia, India, the Netherlands, all his life carrying these stones, keeping them clean, intact, without a scratch, alive, ready to lift walls, windows, corridors, fountains. He must be tired of building houses for all of us. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to start. So this is A Sudden Blow. This is the poem that's on the poster. Second place. So, okay. A sudden blow. The great wings beating still. The wet morning bitter and bloody married. Olives popped in mouths, held between teeth and smiles. And I am drunk with sleeplessness and resolute. I am doing this. And he, like Lita's downy, pulsing conqueror, will conquer me. And we're smiling because we can't not. It isn't even a question. At 8 a.m. the bar is sticky and overflowing with people just like us, shaking and staring down into the world in their glasses. "This is epic," he murmurs, and takes a piece of ice from my cup, sucks it between his lips, and we get up to go. I'm putting on my black coat, death march to the car, where everything will end and the river will swallow me whole, a sudden blow, his great wings beating. I'm going to read, I'm from New Orleans, and last spring I did a jam term class with Tony, the advanced poetry workshop, and as sort of an independent study for that, I did some interviews of Katrina victims and survivors. So I interviewed this gentleman named Robert Greene, and he had a huge effect on me. He's very inspirational. So this is sort of my take on that. This is Robert Greene, Lower Ninth. 8 p.m. and the howling outside has stopped. The babies is in the family room, waiting for the power to come back so they can watch the news. Everything's fine. Worst storm of the century, my ass. But Mama keeps saying, "Robert, honey, Robert, we gotta see what they say. It's not over." Glass is shining in the light of the candles. Mama looks like she means it. My cousin is silent, Naya in his lap. He keeps playing with her braids, the colored beads in her hair, till she falls asleep. 4:10 a.m. It keeps coming, and my grandbabies is scared. The water is chest high, and I'm on top of the armoire, pulling my family up to the attic onto the roof. "Robert, the houses are moving. My mother's house is breaking apart, and I've got too many babies to hold. They're screaming, and hell is on earth. And I have to put Shania down just for a second. I can't lose control, but Jesus, help me, Jesus, just so I can pull my mama up through the hole. When I turn around, Shania's gone. God has forgotten us. The water keeps rising. 7 p.m. on dry land. I stare at the place where the barge has broken through the 17th Street Canal, where the Mississippi came roaring in. It's not your fault, Robert. How could we know? Mama's left us, gone to take care of Shania, and I hope she tells her I tried to save her, didn't mean to leave her in that hungry, dark water. The sun is setting over my city. Damn prettiest colors I've ever seen. But my brother says it's just the chemicals leaking out. The tide's receding, and when I close my eyes just for a quiet second, the waves licking at the trees and the clapboards and the concrete. It sounds like we're at the beach. I'll read this little poem. This is short. Burn, like the verb. It's times like these that jolt me. Finding mushrooms in a video cassette, condoms behind the bathroom mirror. My father is a sexual being. My father hides acid in film canisters. I have to decipher him. He, the stranger who left my mother when I was wiggling in the womb, a wily and restless square root. I wonder if, despite the tangible nothing he's taken and placed in my waiting hands, despite the fact that he swears against Ziploc, wax paper only, I will find him looking back at me when I examine our stick-out ears, our longish nose, our big teeth in some city window, pausing as I walk away from some sad and good-hearted lover, waiting in his tiny lofted bed, picking my hairs from his pillow. This is also sort of from the same Jan term class. It's about my mom. Not for all the love in the world. Mardi Gras, 1987. Lady Godiva clip-clopped down Esplanade right in front of my apartment, smiling beatifically at all of us, doing the clean wave. A transvestite chasing a goat followed soon after, and as the oaks chattered in the breeze and my legs felt like they weren't there, and I couldn't stop smiling, I couldn't help but fall for it. Who wouldn't? In the years following, my daughter will grow up too fast and in love with this city. It is, in her words, an abusive relationship. New Orleans ain't a city, it's a star. She will grow up in love with a place carved out of mud and silt, a stained glass window, a stray dog, a tomb, a place I will eventually hide from in a box of wine. When this city breaks her heart again and again, she's too thin, she's crying herself to sleep, she's having too many boys over, trying to get over her first. And then we have to go away because the city is full of death and the stench of rotting. But she tells me New Orleans is real. The rest is done with mirrors. I believe her. Thank you.
I've been at Whittier now for, gosh, a few years, and I just love it. Even though I moved away, I live in Pasadena. But one of the books I have out is called The Ravenous Audience, and the poem on the posters from this book, but truthfully, I've read from it so many times that I can't do it anymore. I'm a little bored. So I'm going to be reading from new work. I have actually several books coming out, and so one of the books that I have coming out is called The Fashion Issue. And it's, you could call them prose poems, but I like to call it a conceptual fashion magazine. And it's actually going to be shaped like a fashion magazine, which is very exciting. So these first poems I'm reading are found poems, you could call them. And they are literal fashion editorial descriptions that I found online. And I think they're really interesting when you take them away from the images, so we'll see what you guys think. For Dedicate's June issue, French photographer Greg Gex adds a whole new layer of sin to the concept of nuns gone bad. Starring Ashley Smith, Dark Habits showcases religious accessories alongside sexy black and white ensembles styled by Yoko Mayaki. Blasphemy has never been hotter. I didn't have to add anything to that. Here's another one. Oh, and before I forget, the inspiration for today's costume. It's been a crazy week. Normally I like to kind of tie everything together, but the only thing I could think about was blue poodles. I feel like they're very inspiring to me right now. So some of the stuff I'll read later has to do with rich people in Beverly Hills, and I feel like some of them might carry blue poodles. So it all goes together. All right. Starring Alessandra Ambrosio as a wandering vagrant in the streets of New York, this story captures the homeless fashionista as she dons a wardrobe of this season's airiest garments. Topped off with a messy hairdo and a heavy coat, Alessandra is lost amid a world of chaos and isolation in Will Davidson's hauntingly beautiful story. Would you like to be a homeless fashionista? All right. Celebrating the Islamic tradition of Ramadan, Harper's Bazaar Arabia takes us through a restrictive yet still fashionable journey from sunrise to sunset with Suzanne Spiel's contribution for its July-August issue. Styled by Sally Matthews in ethereal, lightweight pieces ideal for a day of fasting while facing the summer heat, Masha of Bareface shines like purity in breaking dawn. They're a little awkward, right? Fashion's a little awkward. In a cutting-edge shoot for Numero, Constance Jablonski heads onto the African plain for a day of nature and familial bonding. Photographed by Greg Cadell and styled by Patty Wilson in an array of 70s-inspired looks, including blonde and brunette afros, the French model takes on the controversial role of mother to a black child. And then I'm just going to read a few poems from one section in the fashion issue. And this section was inspired by the reality show The Girls Next Door. How many of you guys have seen that? So some of you haven't, so I should tell you. It's about Hugh Hefner and his girlfriends. So it takes place at the Playboy Mansion. These girlfriends, sadly, he doesn't have them anymore. You know, they move through pretty quick. But if you watch the show, you should recognize some of this. And it's the entire section is basically a description of all the rooms in the Playboy Mansion, and it's inspired by, of course, the lifestyles of the rich and famous, as well as the game Clue, and as well as Better Homes and Gardens, Decorating Magazine, and crime scene descriptions. So, gotta decide which rooms you guys need to hear. We'll start with King's Quarters. This mammoth monarch's master suite contains carved walnut paneling and dark red Villette rugs on hardwood floors. The floor is filled with stacks of magazines and papers. There is a California king-size bed with a row of mirrors above it. On the shelf below the mirrors are a stuffed Mickey Mouse and a Darth Vader figurine, as well as many other toys. On a shelf across the room are over 100 Hallmark greeting cards from former girlfriends. There are 3 large flat-screen TVs across from the bed. One is turned on to Casablanca, his favorite movie. TV trays at the end of the bed are stacked with magazines such as Us Weekly and Forbes, as well as the last 2 years of Playboy and several Milky Way bars. There is a Murano glass chandelier above the bed, which has 32 pairs of women's underwear hanging from it. In the corner of the room is a large fish tank with a Little Mermaid figurine and pink rocks. In one of the 3 large walk-in closets are men's Prada shirts, 10 in every color, and 30 red velvet bathrobes. There is also a row of 20 pink silk women's pajamas in various sizes, shrouded in plastic. The room's opulent grandeur, mixed with a casual, all-American clutter, proffers it a best of all worlds ascendancy. I read these poems once at a reading, and there was some older people in the audience, and afterwards I guess one of them turned to her granddaughter and said, "How does she know so much about Hef?" I studied him. All right. Vintage vanity. This glam vanity sits side saddle to the master suite. It has many mirrors. The lighting is optimal for minimizing flaws. The vanity is made of MDF, an engineered wood that lends exceptional strength and ensures the surface's integrity over time. The surface has a white veneer. There's a smaller, round, magnifying mirror set on the vanity, along with silver jars filled with makeup brushes of many sizes, handle lengths, head shapes, bristle cuts, and bristle origins. The drawers hold matte lipsticks and liquid eyeliners from Chanel and MAC, as well as a prescription bottle of Clomid. There is a Jean Harlow wig on a wig stand, and on the wall is Marilyn Monroe's 1953 Playboy cover in a silver frame. The vanity chair has a white satin seat cover and is Hollywood Regency style. There is a men's black Prada tie slung over the silver chair back, which is in the shape of a heart. On the floor are 2 baskets for 2 small dogs. The dogs' names are embroidered on the baskets in cursive, Duke and Duchess. The mirrors in the room are empty, except for a 3x5 black and white snapshot of Hugh Hefner in a red velvet bathrobe and a blonde woman in a sexy Marie Antoinette costume with sheer white stockings held up with white lace garters. This woman's sparkling fantasy realm has an old world appeal while still emanating a modern charm. Do you guys know whose area that is? Of the girlfriends? Yeah, Holly. I love Holly. She has her own show now. She escaped, and now she has Holly's World, and she's like a Vegas showgirl, independent in the world. All right, just I think maybe one more. This one's called Pink Playpen. This large bedroom is hot pink and organized. The queen bed's bright pink comforter is offset with sprays of black and white bunnies with bow ties pillows. There is also a large Hello Kitty pillow. The pink mouse and pink computer monitor accent the pink desk. Inside the main desk drawer is a plastic baggie of bite-sized Mounds bars and 2 bottles of Tantalizer Body Bronzing Luminizer. There is also an unmarked bottle of pink pills and a pink diary with a gold lock. Inside the control clutter closet are numerous glittering gowns and themed costumes, such as Sexy Devil and Sexy Angel. The closet is color and calendar coordinated. There is a large cat scratcher in one corner. On the bedroom wall is a poster of Hugh Hefner in the style of Andy Warhol, and another of a blonde woman in a Honey Rider from James Bond custom-made beach bunny bikini, replicating Honey's gun-to-hip pose on a beach in Jamaica. The posters give the flirty room a splash of joy. All right, thanks so much. And thank you, Tony, for having me.
First, I'd like to read a sonnet that I wrote last semester, and the title is A Web of White Ink. There is nothing impure as purity, you say, adrift upon a pristine loneliness. Scattered across infinity, the world of clockwork God and glass, our bones recoil from perfection, seeking love. So now I'm stranded on these shores of snow and shit and innocence, the dark milk of my soul blazing like mint green stars, aglow like white ink on a page. The cat's eye burns, incinerates my undermind, the strands of silk and dream I've woven. This black sea within, this holy black desire, yearns for dawn. Your melancholy web expands. Ah, but nowhere is everywhere, is me. That's it. And now I'm going to read the poem that's on the poster, and the title is Roadkill. Morning rises in my windshield. Music shakes the glass. I see a skunk in the middle of the highway, its tangled pink entrails smoking in the sun, its fur smeared like black and white paint on the asphalt, its eyes staring into nothing. It's shameful, but I've never seen a man die to be disturbed by this. It's pathetic, but I've never seen his innards spilling out of him, his bones piercing, collapsing into his flesh, his blood mingling with a strange dust, in a country of named but don't understand. When I don't even know the caliber of rifle clinging to his chest like a deadly lover. When I've never heard him scream, "Oh God, don't let me die," or bomb the whole motherfucking plaza so we can get out of here, or cry out as if his very sinews were unraveling. When I've never clasped his hand in mine, as he rots slowly, crushed beneath the weight of our forgetting in the filthy gutters of the Gabir Road. If I knew you, I would cry for you. If I knew how much you suffered, I'd let tears scald my face until we both burst into flame. If I knew you, I could at least love you or hate you, and step for a split second outside our attempts at perfection, and let these bodies explode until we were not man or woman or statistic, but beings of agony and light. But the moments passed. My heart is lighter now. I can breathe. Palm fronds sway in the breeze. The sky is blue and beautiful. Loud beats lodge comfortably, complacently, silver-coated bullets in my brain as I drive past the silent wreckage and leave it all behind me. The tongue hanging from a gaping mouth, the paws splayed out in all directions.
We really appreciate it. I thought I might read a sonnet that I translated from the Chinese in collaboration with the Chinese poet and scholar Zhou Ping. It's from a book called The Anchor Book of Chinese Poetry, which is basically 3,000 years of Chinese poetry collected together. And what I liked about translating Feng Zhe, the 20th century poet, is that he was a German scholar, and was deeply influenced in particular by the sonnets of Rainer Maria Rilke. And so he began writing sonnets in Chinese. And so for me, as an American poet who's involved often with writing in form, it was particularly a nice translation experience because I could translate a Chinese sonnet into a sonnet in English. So here it is. He's a very conceptual poet, a very philosophical poet, and really just to orient you, since sometimes it's hard to hear it out loud, it really is about the way all the objects of a room come from other places. This table was once inside of a tree. You know, that lamp was once the ore inside of a mountain, and so on. The glass was once sand particles that were later melted. Okay? Sonnet 21. Listening to the rainstorm in the wind by lamplight, I am utterly alone. Yet, though this cabin is so small, I find between me and the objects in my room are thousands of miles, spreading far away. The pitcher's brass longs for the mountain's ore, as the ceramic cup craves river clay, and everything whirls like birds in a storm dispersed to east and west. So we hold on, in fear. Our bodies will lift off from us, flying through storm in the deep sky, then gone in rain that pummels all the world to dust. Nothing is left except this shaking flame to indicate to me my life remains. That's Feng Zhe. And then I thought it might be interesting to read a couple of sonnets that I wrote as part of a project in which I'm doing actually in collaboration with the artist Alexandra Eldridge. We are putting together a deck of tarot cards. Here's a couple of our cards. A deck of tarot cards, and the idea, it's basically a conceptual book of poems. A book of poems that you can read in any order as you shuffle the deck, and you can play actually like a real deck of tarot cards, and that will be used as a form of divination for creative writing workshops for people to inspire people to write poetry and fiction. So all of the poems and the art have to do in some way or another with creativity. So the first one I will read is the Death card, and as you might be able to see, the Death card is an hourglass. At the bottom of the hourglass is a pile of skulls, and out of the skulls is growing a pink flower. So death, of course, for the creative person is a lucky thing, because you die out of the conscious mind into the unconscious, descend like Persephone into the underworld, get planted like a seed, out of which crop through pleasant pain grows the new work of art, i.e., the myth of Jesus or the myth of Persephone, or all those descents into the underworld that are at the core of the vegetation myths that are forms of metaphors for creativity. So here you are. By the way, it's a double sonnet because when you play a card upright, it has one meaning. If you play it the other way around, it has another meaning that's related, so I'll read the double sonnet. Here's Death Upright. One day, your toe fell off. The tiniest toe on the right foot. My toe, you mourned. My favorite toe. Your thumbs were next to go. Some hair, your nose. And you were so deformed, you walked through crowds and people turned in fear. And at the bar, in a red booth, a tooth dropped in your glass. And when you rose, an ear dropped on the naga hide. And then, in truth, the loss accelerated. Biceps, legs, your black-lashed eyes, your pale flesh lips, your head. Your family came and gathered up the dregs, and singing sadly for the you that's dead, they planted you in the black, fertile earth. You float there in that womb and wait for birth. Then reversed. They planted you in the black, fertile earth because the you that was all dismembered. You float there in that womb and wait for birth, forgetting who you were, and then remembered, rise from the dark where you lay disconnected. One small child, at the funeral, turns her head as at a memory barely recollected and sees your shining form, no longer dead. All this, of course, is just a parable that I tell you to get you ready for the journey made in truth, the real farewell. The mystery. You're at the threshold of a door. Now you see me. Don't look at me with fright. Come with me, gently, into that good night. Clearly you're stolen last night. But, so, because we have a short time, I won't read you another one of these. This is one of my favorite ones. This is the Five of Staves, which is the conflict card. A lot of fun. Instead, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and how about I just read you one divorce and heartache poem? Why not? It's a Saturday. Ooh. Okay, this is what her father said. From a book of sort of love, divorce, 12 Steps of Recovery, called Sad Jazz, sort of a novel in verse. The woman in the poem is Japanese American. You kind of need to know that to kind of place what's going on. It's a sonnet too. What her father said. After the barbecue, the men stayed out in the cold garden drinking sake, rum, and whiskey. Stomachs warm and fingers numb. The yellow cat began to nose about the chicken bones and cold asparagus, leftover steak and daikon radish, salt soybeans, cucumber salad. It's my fault, he said. She doesn't want me. Just give us some time, her father said, his gray hair tied back, gripped his son-in-law's hands across the table and held them tight, tight. Listen to me, he said. In Japan, we say a dog is able to eat all things, will even lick its ass. But marriage trouble, even dogs won't eat. Okay, shift of gears. Let's think in terms of timing. Do I have time for one from this? It's kind of interesting. It is kind of a local LA poem. This is called Azusa Boulevard. I seem to be reading mainly sonnets today, so this is a sonnet also. Azusa Boulevard. I'm driving out the boulevard past icons, orange planets floating over the gas stations, the Tiki Tiki Lounge, the Iron Sky, the convenience store where for a pack of cigarettes, $11 and a hat, the Pakistani clerk was shot last week. The city, like a void, expanding through towns of lemonade, the lot of polished, marked-down cars below the freeway, dark smog pushed against the hills, a fat man to the table, galaxies of dust, the low sky stained with nicotine and rust. Los Angeles. A billboard explains that life is harsh. Your tequila shouldn't be. I'll end with two more sonnets. It's all sonnets today, I guess, sorry. These are from a book of poems called Tongue of War, from Pearl Harbor to Nagasaki. These are all World War II poems set in the Pacific, based on about 15 years of interviews with veterans and their families, and research into diaries, letters, histories, and so on. They're all dramatic monologues spoken from different points of view. The first one is from the point of view of a woman in Evansville, Indiana. It's called Homebrew. I might try to go into character for these a little bit, but I won't raise my voice, you know, but I'll go a little character. Homebrew. Woman, Evansville, Indiana is the speaker. He never drank a lick before the war, but he came back a fall-down drunk. He said they cook up homebrew from potatoes or from fruit, and then get bombed among the dead. He started slapping me around and changed to someone moaning to himself at night, "Oh God, oh Mom." A silent man, deranged inside, his spirit bottled up. One night last year, I woke with his hands around my throat. His mouth was moving. He was dreaming. I thumbed him in the eyes till he came round. And when he understood, he broke down, weeping. He put his medals in a box. "It's done," he said. Got a drink. It wasn't done. And then this poem is called At the Retirement Home. It's from the point of view of a U.S. soldier from the 194th Armored Regiment, retired, living in a retirement home in Brainerd, Minnesota. He is somebody who went through the Bataan Death March. For those who don't know the Bataan Death March, 75,000 American and Filipino soldiers were captured on the Philippine island of Bataan and marched for many, many miles over 10 days to prison camps. Along the way, they were not fed or given water. 25 to 35,000 of them died en route of starvation, dehydration, or casual execution. They had their heads cut off by samurai swords. If they fell down, they were shot point blank. It was one of the great massacres of the war. So this guy survived that, and let's go ahead. At the retirement home. Again, I'll go into character, so don't get freaked out when my voice changes. I've had both knees replaced. I got a steel pin in my hip. I don't hear you so good, but I'm not stupid, son. How would you feel surviving the Bataan Death March? No food for days, no water, and the ones who fell behind were bayoneted where they lay. And now, you're marching off to death. Real hell is not old age, though. No. Taking away the rights we died for, saying, torture's right. That's hell. Hand me the iron in those shirts, would you? Thanks, son. As long as I have fight, I'll love this country. Till it hurts. And it does. This is worse than what I saw overseas. Torture in America.